We're really excited today to have a guest on, Don Day, owner of Boise Dev here in the Treasure Valley. Don is a longtime journalist here in the Valley. He worked for 17 years at KTVB before starting his own journalism company called Boise Dev. Don is a graduate of Boise State University, a Boise native. Also received his advanced degree from Stanford. He has grown Boise Dev from just 6 years ago to an idea and a thought to now one of the leading news organizations here in Idaho. He has the most read morning daily journal that is an online newsletter. We're really excited to catch up with him and talk about all things development in Idaho and in the Treasure Valley. Before we hear from Don, we're going to hear an Alquist update from Corey Hall, and then we'll welcome our guest, Don Day. Okay, first ever Onward update, Alquist company update. Corey Hall, let's start with the rodeo.
How's it going? I thought it was supposed to be positive.
It was positive.
Oh my gosh, you couldn't have set a rodeo up easier to win. We're last out in an 8.68.
So let's last Friday night was the Glens Ferry, world famous Glens Ferry rodeo.
Yep.
Tons of cowboys. I couldn't believe it.
There's 26 teams.
26 teams. You were the last. I want to reenact the announcement. It's like, hometown hero, Super Bowl champion Corey Hall in Dakota. What happened?
I came out and missed.
What happened?
I don't know. They started talking. I about fell off my horse. No, I thought I had him roped, and if I would have caught, we probably would have won the whole deal. But that's rodeo.
It was really fun. I guess I went to the Stampede Rodeo Saturday, and after watching you Friday night, it is crazy that they come from all over the country, and you get one shot.
It's definitely one of those sports that you got to be like, you have to have your mind right, because you're going to go out for about 6 seconds and you have to just, it's kind of a smooth as fast thing. Like you have to go out and you have to do everything right in one run.
It's one shot. It's 10 seconds.
And some of these guys are driving 4 or 6 hours.
No, it hit me because anyway, it was really fun to be down there. It was fun to be with Dan. Oh man, dude, I got more one-liners.
I can't even imagine being in the stands with him. He was giving me the pep talk.
Did he show you the picture?
Oh yeah.
He had me hold the beer can and took a selfie of us.
Oh, yeah.
He's awesome. Your mom and dad are awesome.
Oh, that's awesome.
All right, hey, updates. How are things going on construction side for us?
It's going good. All kind of throughout this year, we've been anticipating being really busy this fall, and so we're doing some really exciting things with D&B. So their corporate office out in Caldwell is going really well. I think we're actually standing panels this week, and then we'll start seeing some steel fly in next week. So that's going really well, and there's a remodel out in Nampa. So
Cranes up downtown on ICCU. I think steel starts down there in the next couple of weeks.
We should start flying steel down there in the next probably 3 weeks, I think. And so that project's going really well, and looking forward to some exciting stuff with Quality Electric and the Flex building coming up. So
we're staying busy. What are you hearing out there? Supply chain, just the busyness with labor and what's going on at Micron and Facebook. I mean, there's just a lot of things out there.
I think we've already kind of seen some challenges with, skilled trades in our market. Here just in the Boise Valley, like you get some of those bigger jobs, the Meta, the Microns. I think it's going to be tough for the next couple of years. Especially with like electricians and plumbers. I think those couple scopes of work, it's going to be tough to find and keep good guys.
We've talked about this a little bit on here, but there is a kind of an aging skilled worker still, and then you got this demand, so it's kind of this double whammy. But we do have great programs out there too. I think that don't you see that there's more people moving here and a lot more younger kids kind of saying, hey, this is a great career. Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, for sure. And when you do see those guys on site, especially with our group, we always try to bring them up. It's fun to see younger guys that are really committed to, their skill set and whether it's a journeyman plumber, electrician, or mechanical guy or framer. Like it's always good to see that younger generation of kids moving into our workforce.
And your team keeps growing here.
Yeah, they're doing great.
I think they need they you walk over on that side of the building and you can tell who works out every day.
Yeah.
Judas Priest.
I think Kyle might be winning right now. He's swole up.
I mean, you go over on the other side and everyone's like, you got the
between Chris and Kyle and Holden.
Yeah. They're all walking around. I'm like, okay, these guys are made different. Well, all right. Well, we just wanted to have you on to do a quick update before we start our podcast, and appreciate all you do, buddy. We'll see you here in a couple weeks.
Let's go.
Thanks. You can be snarky. You can let your true. You can let the true dawn
I have
out.
to hold it in. Oh, I can hear you.
You can hear yourself. If we play something on, look, we've got your website pulled up. If we play something, this is a high quality. This is a high quality production, Don.
I guess.
Thank you for coming on.
How are you?
I'm great. How you?
Good. Busy day.
It's been a while since I've seen you
Yeah.
in person.
Yeah. I can't even.
How's the baby?
I saw one of my employees today for the first time since May. So, yeah, we all work remote. Baby is great. Going to be a year old in.
I was going to say, aren't you
Soon.
coming up on a year?
Yeah. He's
Life changing, right?
about to walk.
Can we start there?
We can start there.
Because I know you're a great dad. How's it
You
been?
don't know that.
Actually,
You assume that.
actually, I assume it from.
I hope so.
I assume it from like the post. You do a good job of faking it if you're not.
Yeah, right. Instagram's not real life, but no, he's wonderful, and we are having so much fun with him. And my wife Kara, who co-founded Boise Dev, which maybe we'll talk about, and I are, a year into the adventure of parenthood, and now we're full time in the business together, and so there's a lot going on.
A lot going on. It's amazing though, isn't it?
It is amazing. It
Like
changes your perspective on a lot of things, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it changes your day to day. It changes what you do and what you're looking forward to.
I'm just hoping to get old enough to have grandkids.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not sure. I got to this kind of late, so we'll see.
It's people. I mean, you go all those years, people saying, "Oh, my grandkid did this," and they're showing pictures to you, and you're rolling your eyes like, what? And then you become one of them, and it's like you look forward to that FaceTime in the morning. We're lucky because ours lives so close, and Cash and Jack, we get to see them almost every day. My wife sees them every day for sure. Sometimes I miss it because I get home from work late, but it's really good. And now tell me about your dog. Let's start with the dog.
Yeah.
Come on, Don.
I got a dog when I was 29, and horribly single because all I was doing was working at a place here, and she passed away a couple weeks ago, and it's gutting. It's just gutting, and she's a little dog, and she'd actually gotten littler, unfortunately. But we have another dog, Lola, who's keeping us going. And so we miss Dora, and she's a sweet dog. They all are. I mean, ultimately.
They are. I get I've got dogs, and they're like my kids too. And I think about it sometimes. I'll be out in my shop and start crying and rub their head and go, I hope you live forever.
People are always like, oh, people get triggered.
Oh,
left or right, people are like, oh, you get triggered. I get triggered all the time.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, that rug that she peed on before she died.
Yeah.
I don't want to clean that
Yeah.
because and I start crying over a rug
it's
it's just
amazing.
ridiculous. Yeah.
It's amazing. And it's also, you'll have all those pictures of your dog with your child. And
Yeah.
we
we've got
look at all of our kids, and it's just so much part of your family. It's
I kid you not, our son is not quite talking yet, but saying mama and dad right before the day that I don't want to cry. The day that we had to put Dora to sleep, we did it at home. But that morning we were getting our son ready, and he was looking at Dora, and we were having a special moment, and he said Dora. And it was the first time that had happened, and and the smoke alarm went off twice that day, and a bird hit the window, and so I was like, boy, things are happening around here today.
sorry to bring that up, but I love that you share that, and man, I couldn't agree more. Hey, you've been busy.
Yes.
I love your story. We've known each other a long time, but it's been interesting, and we've talked. I do want to talk a little bit about how it started, because I think you watch technology change the world. We all do, and then you watch people like you that go, "Hey, I see opportunity here."
Yeah.
Where others see maybe holding on too long, or fear, or what does this mean for me? I think you were a pioneer in saying, hey, news, the way people consume their news is changing, and I'm going to be out in front of that. And it's been awesome to watch.
I mean, I love the change, and I started in this news market 25 years ago this spring, and started producing a large local news website, and did that for a long time, and so saw the...
Wasn't it like...
It was 99.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So didn't you do it for like 17 years?
I was there for 17 years, 10 years in news, a year of that in Seattle, and then seven years managing sales, digital sales. And but it was always fun. It was like, oh, hey, there's this mobile thing. We're going to start to put news on your like flip phone. Well, that's cool. And then like, oh, this Twitter thing is interesting, like 2008. Yeah. And then like Facebook. And so it was always fun to like be like, what's the next thing? And after a long career there, we talked about this when I last chatted with you. It was time to do something else. I didn't know what that was, and got a chance to do with my now wife, Kara, a journalism fellowship at Stanford in 2017 and 2018. And we took that time to be like, okay, so we've started this little Boise Dev thing, a little hobby. How do we make this a business? And is it possible? And can we do it without a paywall? And can we do the things that we want to do that are community forward? And it's locally owned, not corporate owned. We're the only locally owned for-profit media here. There's a couple of nonprofits, Boise State Radio and some others, but we're it as far as for-profit. And it became apparent that there was a path. And so Kara and I put our heads together. She has an MBA, and then we both kind of went through that Stanford program and looked at like, what does this look like, and what does a model look like, and how do you put this together? And okay, let's try it. And so we did this without any investment or any outside help. Kara took a corporate job and then another corporate job, and that helped support our family while we kind of figured this out. And we never talked about Kara's involvement because she was working at the J.R. Simplot company, and she didn't have an editorial voice in the business, but she had to do that work. And then this spring she left and has joined the business full time, and has actually founded some new pieces. We're doing a new events business and a new food-focused newsletter called Boise Dev Eats. So started in 2018. Let's see if it works. And now where we are 6-7 years on is our Boise Dev AM newsletter that Gretchen Parsons writes is the most consumed piece of media in our market. More than any newscast on TV, more than any newspaper. The other news outlets are still larger because they have bigger, more news, lots of things that they glue together. But as far as reach, that's the biggest thing. More people read Gretchen's morning newsletter than anything else. And that is like, when we figured that out, it was like, wait, is that right? It's mind-blowing. And I think it's just simply a function of trying to build something that is focused on what readers want. And that's changing all the time. It's changing constantly.
Talk a little bit about content, because I think content's king. I think authentic content, community-based content, local content. I think we all just laugh our heads off on some of the Statesman headlines that you'll read, and you read it, and then you're like, oh, that's in like Oklahoma.
Right.
And I know they're just doing it for clickbait or whatever, but I think your content has always...
Just to say that's not the local journalists doing that. It's not. It's a corporate mandate, and I think that there's... saying too much. There's frustration from the people who are
I'm sure.
around that's happening.
Oh,
so
I'm sure.
When people beat up the Statesman or whoever, I think it's important to just note that there's really good work happening there. They're owned by a corporation that has some hedge fund money involved, and they've got to figure out how to make it work. And their cost structure is different than mine. So I just don't want to leave an impression that they're terrible, because they do good work. And I think it's important to say that.
So go back to content for you, because you're humble, but I do think authentic content that people want to read has always been your strength, right? I mean, and then you look at your team, you've added really high quality journalists that work for you, and you try to make it, hey, what do people want to hear? What are they interested in? And that's ultimately why you're successful, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think that having good people, journalism's a low-paying business, and we've tried to work on that, and have made moves, and I think we've actually helped push the market a little bit. And that content is important, and Boise Dev still isn't going to give you everything, because there are other news outlets, and we've actually tried to structure, we baked in with that morning product, we link out. If KTVB or the Statesman or the Capital Sun or Boise State Public Radio or the Wall Street Journal has an interesting local story, we're going to link to them. And for us, that means that I'm not staffing somebody to cover a lot of the social issues and some of the things. One of the things that's a big trend in the industry right now is what's called news avoidance. And I think in the last 10 years, you've seen really choppy, partisan political environment. You saw a pandemic. You've seen, it's 104 degrees outside right now, and you can decide if that's climate change or not, but it's hot. People are having trouble thinking about that. And so people are tuning out of the news. And so you've got this technology thing where I can get HBO Max and Peacock and Netflix and get everything I want. So I'm not watching a traditional newscast. Newspapers had already fallen away. There's some strength in some radio, some of the Nate Shellman kind of stuff people are still listening to. And so people were tuning out. And we saw this opportunity coming out of the pandemic where people wanted to know what was happening in this community, but they were getting it from social media. And so you think about what happens when you open your Facebook or your Twitter feed. You're getting, you might get an update from a local news anchor, and then you're probably going to get something hyper-partisan, and then you're going to get a picture of your grandkid, and then from there it's just like down. It falls off, and it's just garbage. And people were not feeling like they were connected, and we did some audience research that showed us this. And so we said, well, how can we build that from back from the ground up? And so this newsletter product that I'm tremendously proud of that Gretchen does helps you have a pulse on our community. Yeah. But we try really hard to not get into the partisan stuff. There's no national content in that. None. We don't. If you want national news, there's a million sources for that. The closest we're going to get is if there's a really strong local tie to a national event. So obviously some of the recent political events, the attempted assassination on the former president, obviously knowing what the leaders locally were saying, we linked out to a Channel 7 story on that. But other than that, we're not your place for that. And people love it. It's people, and people can reply. So they're like, oh, thank you for this. We love this.
You brought something up, and I wanted to ask you. I got several questions to ask you. I don't know how many I'm going to get in today, but
I told my wife, Kara, I was going to turn this around and just start interviewing you because I've got questions too, but we'll save that for another day.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
I was trying to think when national news became so partisan, and I think I'm 56 now, and I go back, and I've always been kind of a, current events junkie. Kind of, I always followed politics. I liked it. I really liked it. I don't remember when it happened, but it certainly happened. Yeah. And then when it did happen, and you go back and both sides blame each other, and it is, I think it's turned off so many people. But do you remember a time when it wasn't so partisan, or were we just naive and it's always been partisan?
I think there's degrees. It's the late 1990s with Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky and the Starr Report. It's certainly the fallout from September 11th. I mean, I think so many things that are happening in our society today are still linked to that in so many ways, and I think people forget that we went through that as a country. The Iraq War was certainly something that I think people had thoughts about. The Great Recession and the early days of the Obama administration, the election of Donald Trump, the COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, each thing is just kind of layered on. And I was talking to somebody yesterday. I was like, can you imagine if the government decided that we should all wear seatbelts now?
Oh, my goodness.
People would. Yeah. So society has.
But when did it become openly okay to just be so partisan?
I mean, I don't think it's okay, personally. I mean, I don't. I try really hard not to be partisan. Yeah. And it frustrates me because we get a lot of flack from people who are upset at us because we have somebody who posts and is like, I'm really mad that you reported these things about this person I don't like, and you're terrible for that. And it's like, wait, you're mad at this politician, and you're mad that it's our fault that we told you. So you're using the facts that we reported to tell us that we are terrible. I mean, like, I can't. What do I do with that? Like,
don't you think it's being local and 100% locally owned, and being a neighbor? I mean, you're a neighbor to people, and the people that work with you are neighbors. And it's like, hey, I'm a neighbor telling a neighbor about community things that are important to me. It feels personal too, right? And I think for whatever has happened in our world with media and social media, I think national stuff is just so distracted from being neighborly
Yeah.
that it's just mean. It's
And it
just,
goes to that news avoidance thing.
yeah.
And, we're heading into this election cycle, and it's been a crazy 6 weeks. It's we've got a while till November. And but people want to know, they want to know that if their road's going to be closed, or, we're taping this in late July, and today we actually did a special afternoon edition about an hour ago because there's going to be widespread preventative power outages ahead of a windstorm and fires and potential fires, and it's hot.
That's tonight, right?
It's tonight, yeah. So depending on people watch this, so we're trying to be like, well, we got to tell people about this. It's a long way from something called Boise Dev, right? And we've evolved, and we're not going to change the name, but it's not just development anymore. I'm not just trying to figure out what you're building anymore. We're still trying to figure that out.
Talk about that evolution.
Yeah.
Because when it did start, it was very interesting because people are interested with what's happening in their community, what's going up, what's going down, what's going in, what's going out. I mean, and you were that person. It's been funny to watch I can say this because I can say this. It's been funny watching other people try to do that over time, and they kind of come and go a little bit. But consistently, you've been the source for, hey, what's happening? I mean, that's why you.
Oh, and we're neck deep in 2 big stories right now that are going to drop in the next week, right? And they're development related.
And people love that. But then you have become so much more. Mm-hmm. Did you ever think that was going to happen? And I know it's happened naturally, but what would you brand yourself if you would have known what you became?
I don't know. I always joke the Idaho Statesman isn't about one guy, right? Statesman. It's not one guy. So these names are fungible, and Channel 7 is named for some FCC call letters, whatever. So the name is what it is, and I think you can get too cute, the Boise Picayune or something. The name is what the name is, and I'm happy with it. Most people get it fairly quickly, that it's more than that. You scan the homepage and, you see things that are beyond that. I would have probably named it something else, for sure. It started with we didn't talk about this, it started with a hashtag in 2012 on Twitter.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. When I had the sales job at KTVB, and I was trying to find leads for my sales team, and I was a little missing what to tweet about, candidly. I was like, well, I can go through permit filings and look for Jackson's is opening over here, or, St. Luke's is. And so I was like, oh, this needs a hashtag. And I actually started with Boise Retail, hashtag Boise Retail. And Joe Jasuski, who's a good friend of mine, he and I used to be like Twitter nemesis. He was the Statesman, I was Channel 7. And I was like, why do you hashtag it Boise Retail when it's about the Centennial High Gym? I was like, oh, yeah, that doesn't make sense. We'll just tag it Boise Dev. It was literally that. Drop of the hat. And now here we are more than a decade later, and it's the 4th biggest digital news outlet in the state.
That's awesome. Well, I do think that I'm going to move on, but I think you had a jump start because I think you already saw the world differently because of what you did. And you look at your online presence now, it's so easy to navigate. It's easy to get information. It's easy to look up what you do. And
the ad load is low. The
newsletters are fantastic.
And the other thing we didn't talk about, we don't take national ads. We get a lot of inquiry for diet pill ads and whatever else, and blow out your colon stuff, and we don't take it. And so the ads you see on there, when you see ads, are generally local brands.
Is that because of the free things that come with those ads? Well, I don't know. You start with blow out your colon.
I think I saw an ad for that this morning.
Matthew,
on the
blow out
Today
your
Show.
colon just made an appearance on the.
I saw it on the Today Show this morning, so I was like, oh, that's great, good times. So we've just really tried to focus on local, and you talk about that content piece being really important. Development is still at the core of what we do, and it's at the core of a lot of things.
It's because it's so interesting, especially here. Now, if we were anywhere else where we're going the other direction with growth, it is funny because we do have I hear a lot of complaints about growth and development and how you do this, whatever. And we're trying to be in the middle of it to try to help, and we've got a few initiatives going that I think are going to be important. But it is interesting when you travel the country, which we do, and we're in a lot of different jurisdictions looking at developments, to hear people's take on Boise and, if we only had that problem, right?
Yeah.
If we were only growing wages, if we only had people moving in. So it's a good problem to have.
And we try and take a critical look. I'm saying this on a developer's podcast, and I realize that, but we went through this zoning code rewrite in Boise during 2023, and we did lots of stories. And we really tried to pull back because we knew that there were folks like you who were very for it, and city leaders, but there was neighborhood activists who were not and who were.
Yeah.
I suspect funded in part by you. Never proved that. But I'm saying it in your podcast anyway. But we tried to pull back and say, okay, let's just give people the facts, not the NIMBY view, not the YIMBY view, not the developer view, not the city view, but like, what is this? What does this mean? And so we always try and take that approach and realize that, yeah, growth can be very good. There are challenges. It can be very scary. Some people aren't going to like apartments going up in their neighborhood. Some people aren't going to like a big parking field. Some people aren't going to like bike lanes. And trying to mix those all together and give people, no matter how they feel about the growth, give them good facts and a good framework to understand what's happening so that they can, hey, you know what? I don't like the mayor of my town. I'm going to vote him out. They need good facts to be able to make that decision and not just do it because they don't like how they look.
Isn't that what the world needs on almost, I mean, we kind of have gotten away from what's the truth. Like what are the both sides of the issue, and then you decide, right?
Sometimes they're on both sides. Sometimes there's four sides, right? And so you have to be able to do that act of choosing and say, yeah, there's not really much to this. But even that zoning code rewrite, there was like 3 or 4 different schools of thought on that, right? And I heard from people in the development community who felt it didn't go far enough. I heard from people who were upset about things like drive-throughs and the limit, the requirement for the number of stories. I heard from people who were upset that there was going to be 4 lots on a property. I heard from people who were upset that neighborhood meetings were going to be eliminated. There wasn't just like it's good or it's bad.
Oh,
we really tried.
There's a reason it only happens every, how many decades that thing was in
and
place.
We've got our eyes on what's going to happen next because there's probably going to be changes. And
there's got to be changes because now we're living it.
Mm-hmm. And there's some issues.
And there's a whole bunch of things that just weren't thought out. I think were unintentional, which, by the way, it happens every time a giant policy changes like that. Yeah. And then you go, oh, wow, that was probably not an intended consequence of this thing. Give me your thoughts and opinion. I mean, I've known you for a long time. This place is changing. It's changed. I can't even believe.
We're sitting in a cornfield.
Yeah, corn maze.
60 feet in the air. Yeah, well, corn maze in the fall, but cornfield at this time of year, there would be no maze, just corn.
Believe me, we got some heat when we changed this
sure.
out.
Yeah.
Even though it was zoned commercial for like 20 years before we bought it. But it's changed in a big way. Mm-hmm. What do you think about the change? You're a longtime resident. You're how many generations here?
I don't like to say that personally because I don't think we're going to go on a little tangent. I think that signals that me being a number of generations makes my voice more important than somebody who moved here last week. And I don't
think it does, but I think it's interesting because I know
a number.
I know
several.
It's several, right?
Yeah. I mean,
I know your family's been here. I know you grew up here.
Instead of saying it that way, my great grandfather emigrated here from England and put down roots. The family business, which is still in operation, was incorporated in 1908.
Yeah.
And so a number of generations, and my dad was born when Boise was like sub 30,000 people. It ain't that anymore.
Yeah.
I was born in the early 80s, and so my frame of reference isn't what some people's is, but I've seen a ton of growth. And I say a lot. Like, I remember being a kid and growing up on the bench in Boise, and Club Wholesale, which is now on the Sensi campus over here on Eagle Road, was like the Costco of the day. And it was like the biggest drive to the country. And you talk to Luke Kavanagh, who's a Meridian City Council person. He's like, yeah, man, when we drove downtown Boise, it felt like the biggest drive to the country. And so Boise and Meridian were far apart. They're one city. And in fact, I'll plug, we're going to do an event in November that we call the Intersection. It's our second year. Last year we did Jeremiah Dickey and Kristen Armstrong and some others. This year we're going to do, we've booked this. We haven't announced it, so here's a scoop for you.
All right.
We're going to have Boise Mayor Lauren McLean and Meridian Mayor Robert Simison come together and talk about, you've got a Republican and a Democrat with, I like to call it one big city with 2 different political subdivisions, some of the ways in which they see working together, some of the differences in their approach, and how you're seeing different growth in Meridian.
Fascinating.
We're really excited.
When's that going to be?
In November. I forget the exact
November,
date.
and what's the location?
Yeah, it's going to be, we haven't booked this, so I'm going to say this.
All right.
But we did it last year at Athlos, downtown Boise. We're the only event they've ever done there. I think we're going to get to go back there this year, that blue turf they've got on the first floor. And so we're really excited about that, one of a number of events we're doing. And so, but that's kind of this thing, right? This growth Nampa and Meridian are growing together in Caldwell, and it's one big area.
So give me opinions. These are Don Day opinions. These are not. What are some things we've gotten right, and what are some things you're worried about as we've grown? Because no one pays more attention to it than you. I mean, by the nature of your business, when I'm an ER doc, I got a lot of opinions on what comes in the ER. If I'm Boise Dev owner, I've got a lot of opinions on what I see out there.
I mean, I think we really try not to do. We don't do opinion. We don't run opinion. I think you can say fairly, in a fairly straightforward way, that what's happened in downtown Boise since about 1985 to now has been really remarkable. The city's approach to downtown from about 1965 to 1985 was, we're going to tear it all down and we're going to build Boise Town Square downtown, basically. My grandfather was on the first Boise Urban Renewal Board, and so you can probably put a little blame on him. I wish he was here so I could talk to him about this. He died in 97. But so you had these big swaths of open land.
Yeah.
The pictures, we did this a couple weeks ago. The pictures
I saw that. It was awesome.
One giant parking lot with the U.S. Bank sticking out of it.
Yeah.
Now you have the Boise Center, the Grove Hotel, the hockey arena, City Center Plaza, Zions Bank, Capitol Terrace, the Oppenheimer Wells Fargo building. That's just the core, and then out from there. And so I think it's really remarkable to see what has happened. I think a shopping mall downtown would be not amazing. Boise Town Square, to its credit, is one of the strongest shopping malls in the country. People always tell me the mall is terrible, and I'm like, no, it's not. It's actually really strong, and you go in there and it's busy. I'm not sure in downtown that was going to be the best, highest use of that space. So I think that's remarkable, and it's a story that still is evolving. We've got a story next week that's going to talk about that in a really interesting way. Challenges, and you and I have talked about this. We've done stories. The transit situation here is tough. I lived in California for a year. Traffic in Boise is not that bad. However, it's worse than it used to be. And I think that context sometimes, like, it can be a lot worse. It can get a lot worse. And if there are solutions to be had there, it's going to take a lot of leadership and getting a lot of people to agree. And there's different approaches. I know you've done work on that. I know Casey Lynch with Roundhouse is at work on that. I know Elaine Clegg has thoughts about that. I know the legislature has some thoughts about that. I think Governor Little has thoughts about that. And the longer it goes without some sort of action, and I'm not saying it needs to be a train or buses or bike lanes or whatever, it's going to get harder.
It's frankly been, so we started, Garrett Lofto, CEO at Simplot. We started probably 18 months ago a group called Idaho 2040 and just brought a bunch of people together to say, hey, what is the plan?
And didn't you do like Idaho 2020 like 15 years ago too?
We did that too. We did that too. So this was 2040. We probably are going to rebrand it because 2040, after we really dug in and ordered some studies and thought about it, it's probably not a long enough horizon. And what we came up with from like the business community was, hey, there's really three giant things we need to think about. One is public transportation. Yeah. Like, for heaven's sakes, we've got to have a way to have a bus come every 15 minutes to get you from a majority of places in the Treasure Valley to work and back. I mean, that's, rubber-based buses, just let's get people to and from. You'll hear some really controversial stuff, and I won't attribute it to people, but I should. Like, hey, we're just going to wait till we have flying buses, and we're going to wait till, I mean, I'm like, hey, wait a minute. Like,
the Boise Chamber did a whole thing on transit last year in Sun Valley, and one of the first sessions was this idea you're getting these little micro flying things, and everybody just kind of laughed. Hey, maybe it'll happen.
It may happen.
Let's not focus there. Let's focus on technology.
But it's not gonna help those working families right now. So that's one. Number two was rail.
Yeah.
Because we do have a corridor. And we're not talking like next 5 years, next 10 years, but someone has to start thinking about how does the business community help?
Who can afford to buy Union Pacific is, I think, the problem there.
Or work with them.
And they've not destroyed. I think part of it is people want to blame it on the lack of a funding mechanism. That is important. Union Pacific is also very recalcitrant to let people use their right-of-way. And just to maybe back up, Union Pacific owns the rail corridor. Yes. And they don't want traditionally other things on that.
They have been meeting with us.
That's great.
Which is good.
That's news.
So that's number two. Number three, frankly, could derail this whole effort, which is just talk of some sort of an alternate route.
I've heard of that. We're working on that. South.
And when that comes up, it's shocking what happens to people, how polarized they get. Because it's like,
It'll
wait a minute,
drive growth.
why can't we just talk about this? I mean, you show me a major city in the West or United States that has one singular, directional corridor. You got one more lane for right-of-way on I-84, and then that's it. And so one lane gets you another.
And I think the thing that people lose about adding a lane is it's like, if you've got 4 lanes and you go to 5, it's not 25% more capacity. It's like
not.
12% more capacity. And the reason is people have to change lanes. So it's not actually that helpful.
That's exactly
It's
what it is.
crazy.
So it's there, but then when you sit with ITD and you say, okay, what happens after that? They will stare you and say, that's it.
Yeah.
So all we're asking is the simple question of, okay, should we study it? Where would it go? How would you start thinking?
And there was an effort.
Don, it's so controversial.
There was an effort about 30 years ago.
Why can't you at least talk about it?
To do a freeway through the foothills.
That actually is easier to talk about with some people than this because of the city of Boise's resistance to even talk about it.
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, it's sprawl, it's whatever, but boy, I don't know. I think it just shows you.
We're going to have an interesting case study, and Boise Dev's going to do our first kind of big series. We're going to do a series of either 5 or 6 stories in early August on Highway 16. And you have essentially a new freeway that is going to connect you from Interstate 84 near Amazon to Emmett. And that it's a big change that I actually think people are overlooking. You and I talked about this a number of years ago.
I'm not.
when
We
you
have
were-
some property right at 10 Mile that's really great.
I know. But, you were going to do a hospital there at one point, right? At 16 in
Yeah.
Chinden.
Yeah.
That we talked about that years ago. And so there hasn't actually been a lot of work. I think people are overlooking. They see the little project there and it's like, what is this? We're going to have a case study. And one of the stories we're working on is what it will do to Eagle Road, which I think we can all agree is overburdened, and some of those other major arterials, and could help. And so you're going to have this real world study of what an additional freeway. It's not a full freeway. There are some stop lights and some other things to it. But if you've driven on the piece of 16 now, south of Chinden, you feel like you're on 84. It's kind of crazy.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think that's going to maybe shift that conversation. And so we have our eye on what that south freeway could look like. It is a sprawl producer. I think that we might disagree on that, but
No, I don't think
growth is going to drive.
I don't think
just like Avamore is driving sprawl toward.
I don't
Avamore.
think I'm not disagreeing that it's going to cause sprawl.
I'm not saying sprawl is good or bad. I'm just saying.
I'm not even saying you might have the strongest opinion in the world on sprawl.
Yeah, I'm not.
But
giving
your
an opinion on sprawl.
but your alternative of just going vertical and somehow reducing the number of people on when you already have the piss poor public transportation, the worst in like any city of our size in the country, and your answer is going to be.
I was in Ketchum and I saw a bus on Sunday this last week, and I was like, "What's that?"
That's the only thing
There
that
aren't buses on Sunday here.
I mean, you can't talk about it, you can't study, you can't think about
No,
it.
and
You got to get past that.
And I think you and this is one of those things that I like convening, like bringing Simison and McLean together.
Yeah.
To hear their thoughts, because they're going to have different thoughts, and that's okay. And Debbie Kling is going to have another idea, and they're all going to have a different thought. That's okay. At a certain level, solutions are going to have to be had, whether it's a southern freeway or not. I don't know. I'm not an expert in this.
You can't. I've learned you can't call it a freeway. You can't call it a bypass, but you can call it an alternate route, and then you're okay.
I mean, honestly, I think if you built something and only trucks could go on it, if I could drive down I-84, and I'm not denigrating semi-truck drivers in any way, but if you actually look at the freeway, a lot of the traffic is not vehicles. It's
I was in eastern Idaho with it was
who don't need to go through Boise.
random question. But I was over there yesterday, meeting with people that understand the trucking world, and the guy he's in the trucking world is like, we hate going through.
Absolutely.
It is miserable. So I guess
dangerous.
Anyway, we got to get off that because that gets me fired up. But my point is, like, mayors come and go. They do.
Yeah, they do.
Whether all of the ones you like, city councils come
So
and
do
go.
developers, and so do
So
news people, and
so
everything.
developers. But
We're all dead in 60 years, as Jerry Seinfeld likes to say. Like,
gosh, that's morbid.
it is. I saw him. I see.
Are you going to make it past 60
I saw
years?
this.
How old
I
are
saw
you, Don?
43.
Oh, yeah, you
I
ain't
saw
gonna get
him.
60.
No, I'm not going to die at 60. He has this riff. He's like, he'll sit back and he'll watch his family and be like, "Oh, this is all terrible." And he goes, "But I think to myself, in 60 years, they'll all be dead." And I'm like, yeah. I mean, but what that does to me is it tells me we're here for a short amount of time. we have an impact for a short amount of time. And whether it's a mayor who's mayor for 4 to, was Peter in for 20 years, 16 years, whether it's that amount of time, or whether it's you as a developer for 20 or 30 years, or me as a news person for, I'm 25 in and I got another 25 probably, but if I get to 50 years of news, it'll be amazing. But whatever that is, that time horizon is, you're making decisions. The mayor of Boise is making decisions that have generations of impact.
Amen.
And what we try and do is, we're not here to help you make the decisions. We're not here to have a role in that. We're trying to tell the people who are here now what's happening so that they can decide if they want to reelect Robert Simison or Lauren McLean or Debbie Kling. You're no longer up for election, so they can't really get rid of you. They actually had their chance. They could have made you governor. But you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, what you just said, I think, is critically important, and that's why I just think Garrett and I mean, I think you just need a longer view. You need a more cohesive, and I'm even saying this is what I don't think is controversial. Why not study it? Why not put some money in a pot?
so we're not going to talk about this anymore.
What? I know, but why not just study it? Why not get people that are truly experts and get data, and then say, okay, elected leaders, here's some data that you can make decisions on. We don't even study it
I
anyway.
mean, the leaders used to be a little bit more aligned around here, and they still are sometimes. I mean, there's actually more cooperation in municipal leaders
Sure.
in the Treasure Valley than people like to give credit for. And there are differences of
Hey,
opinion.
does it seem like ACHD, the absolute hate for ACHD amongst jurisdictions going down a little bit? Would you agree with that?
They're gonna watch this and they're mad at me now anyway, so I don't have an opinion. I mean, I think that there
I
is.
think the temperature's lower.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's been efforts afoot in the State House to dissolve ACHD the last 2 or 3 sessions.
Yeah.
Partly driven because Eagle was upset and Star was upset to some reason, but I don't think they can figure out how to redo ACHD so that Star and Boise get an equal vote, because Star and Boise don't have equal representation. It's incumbent on the commissioners on that commission to help ensure that the people, because they're in districts, that the people in Star are well served, the people in Eagle are well served, and I think that, is there less hate? Yeah, but Dave Beater hated ACHD more than he didn't like me, and he said it all the time, and it drove a lot of headlines and a lot of news coverage, and the current political leadership in Boise and elsewhere just kind of keeps their mouth shut, and because I think they've decided that a different approach works better.
That's great. What's gone wrong? What are we, you said transportation, you said, well, we got rides downtown. Anything else you're concerned about or seeing from your world that, let me ask you a couple of Micron impact.
Yeah.
We're on the leading edge of that. Thoughts on?
We've got a story coming on Micron that I think people will want to read. I did a video.
Saw the video.
Yeah, if you saw it, you could tell I was upset with them. Still upset with them. And it's a big company. It's spending a lot of money. And it's probably good for a lot of things in our economy, and probably going to cause some problems. And so we're trying to get answers from them on some of that, so we can better understand what's happening. I say this a lot, but they're going to spend they say they're going to spend $15 million, partly subsidized by the federal government, partly subsidized by the state of Idaho, and significantly subsidized by anybody who owns property in this county, because they have a forever property tax cap out there. They could build Cincinnati out there. I don't know why that's the city that came to mind. And they're not paying any more property tax. And so that means that the property tax burden, and this is a 2008 law that was designed to attract a nuclear company to Idaho, and Micron went, ooh, we can spend that much money, and then we get a permanent property tax. And so they're not paying, they're going to spend $15 billion and generate $0.000 of property tax. So we're all helping in this effort if you live really in the state, and so, or this country. So we think that they deserve to be watchdogged. Every developer I listen to, something must be happening because my watch is going crazy. I lost my train of thought. I apologize. The labor market for construction is really strained right now. Micron's spending $15 billion, Meta's spending about $1 billion, and St. Luke's Health System has a very large hospital system they're trying to get through. And so you got other projects, and people are going, I don't know how I can do this. And so there's even sort of not smaller impacts, but impacts there on building a new apartment complex, or building a new strip center, or building a building like this. And so we just try and step back, no matter who it is, whether it's Tommy, whether it's Micron, whether it's whatever, and say, what do people need to know about this, particularly when public dollars are involved. And so if it's a public-private partnership and there is any sort of tax dollar, that's a place that I really try and put a lot of focus, because that's my money. That's your money. And
People are interested in it, right?
That's my fiscal conservatism coming out and saying, those are our dollars. We need to watch those and make sure that people understand how they're being used. And Micron is a big, big recipient of public dollars.
That was super insightful, and so the story's next week.
I think so. We're hoping. We've been working on it for a while.
Talk about. I got a couple other big topics. Public records requests.
I told everybody in our internal communication tool that my tree fort band name would be Tactical PRRs. I love public records requests.
So how do they go? Who do you have the most trouble with, and why do you think people
I have
are
the most trouble with Boise State University and their general counsel, Matt Wild, and I'm happy to say that on a podcast. I've written about it. Look, I get myself in trouble, but not any more trouble. I've written about it. Public records requests are important. When the government creates a document, an email, a contract, that's not their record. It's our record. It's anybody watching. It's mine. It's yours. And Idaho's law is actually really good about public records. I am on the Idaho Press Club board, and the Idaho Press Club has a new offshoot called the Idaho First Amendment Alliance. It's a separate 501c, 3 or 4, I always forget which one, that's raising funds to help mostly news organizations, but some others, to fight some increasing abuses of public records. I've gone tooth and nail with Boise State over some of the most dumb things. They didn't want to tell me what the third facilities priority of the track team was. I didn't care what that was, but I couldn't figure out why it was redacted, and I found their reasoning to be problematic. And it just kept getting worse and worse. I mean, hiding Garth Brooks' concert, not giving us Brian Harson's Twitter block list, big things, big and small. You get hot and bothered about a Southern Freeway, I get hot and bothered about Boise State. And I'm a Boise State fan, right? And so it's weird for me because I'm grinding at them, but also have a good relationship.
What's our remedy if they don't? What is the current?
I can go to court and sue them. And I'm a small business. I don't have the resources to go to court and sue the largest university in the state of Idaho. I don't. And they know it. Yeah. And that's part of the problem the Idaho First Amendment Alliance is trying to remedy.
But that's the only remedy. There's not any other...
Begging.
There's not a...
Shaming.
Yeah.
That's why we've written about Boise State. And so I did a story in November that talked about they're a party, they're the defendant in a lawsuit with Big City Donuts that's gotten this weird partisan overlay, and there's a lot to it, but not Big City Donuts. Big City Coffee.
Yeah.
And leaving the politics aside for just a second, the VP of communication at Boise State had renamed files around Big City Coffee to BCC, B space C space C. And then another Boise State employee who was being deposed said, well, she did that to hide it from public records requests. That's not okay. It's not. Those are not, you're trying to skirt the law.
Yeah.
And and it's not just them. A number of members of the press are having trouble with University of Idaho. I'm not. I don't cover that too much, but I know Idaho Ed News has had a lot of problems in them trying to shield things around University of Phoenix.
What's the latest on that? I haven't heard anything.
Honestly, there was a story today that Kevin over there sent me. I didn't read it. I think they've spent like $15 million trying to get that deal through already. That's a lot.
So it's not dead. It's still going.
No, I think they're still trying to keep it alive. The legislature kind of tried to kill it. I think they're trying to keep it going.
Let's shift to politics.
There are good people with public records requests too. The Ada County Highway District, who I had some tough stories on this spring, excellent. Idaho Transportation Department, who we've done lots of tough stories on, excellent. City of Boise, excellent. A lot of people do really
great
follow the law. So I don't want to just say it's all bad.
We love the Broncos.
Yeah. But they also need to...
It could be a great season.
They also need to let me know what the third priority of the track team is so I can look at it and go, huh, instead of fighting over it for 6 months.
Politics. Let's talk. Can we talk politics?
I mean, it depends.
What do you mean it depends?
Ask him. We'll see. I'm not very political. It's not my nature.
Well, I know, but it affects development, it affects
Sure.
life, it affects what we do. State politics right now. Thoughts on just the primaries, state Republican Party.
That's not my. We just
not your
don't-
thing?
We don't cover that, and what I don't want is people to watch this and be like, "Oh, wow, he really hates the Democrats." Right? I just try and stay out of it. And we cover municipal politics, and we're going to try and tell you what's happening in Boise City Hall and at the Highway District, ITD to some degree. But as far as those things, I don't know. It's just not my. It's just not. I can go read about that other places. It's not what we do at Boise Dev.
Yeah.
I can listen to your podcast for opinions.
I don't. I'm just.
I mean, I love to listen. I'm bringing up Nate Shellman twice. I love to listen to Shellman's show. I love to hear what people are thinking and saying. You know, whether I agree or not. It's super interesting.
Shellman cracks me up.
He does.
That guy.
He's really funny.
He is really funny. He's actually a pretty nice guy, even though he likes to make everyone thinks he's an ass.
And if you know his wife, Michelle Hart, who does mornings.
I have no
another
idea how.
Nicest woman in the world.
Yeah, but how does she stand him? Honestly,
People.
I mean, there are mysteries. There's like
She
mysteries.
is one of the kindest people.
Yeah, and there's mysteries in life, and
It
that's
says a lot about Nate to me that Michelle loves him.
That's actually a really good point, and I think he's a really nice guy.
I do too.
He probably never listened to this, but
I'm going to tell him about it. I'll text him after this. I'm going to talk to you about the Tommy podcast.
we should have Nate Shellman on, Maddie.
You should.
Like, it'd be great to just get him
So
on.
one of the things we
grill
want-
him about his relationship.
I'll tell you, and we haven't booked this, and I haven't asked everybody, so I'm going to say it. One of the things for the intersection, so we're going to have McLean and Simison, and we'll have three kind of modules. One of the things I want to do is Nate Shellman and Gemma Gaudette.
Oh wow!
And that's not so much left-right, but you have people who both are on the radio, both kind of run radio talk shows and have different approaches, and I think that'd be really interesting to hear. I haven't booked it yet, so we'll see, but that's one of the ideas I have.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, right?
That would be really
Because
good.
Nate and Gemma both do fantastic work. They serve very different audiences.
I have bad experiences with both of them.
No, that doesn't surprise me. You had bad experiences with me. You called me raging before.
Why would you say that?
You've been so
You haven't even heard my story. So when I first got to town, I was an ER doc, and I get a call from the head of the hospital. It says, "Hey, we need an ER doc to do a story on trampolines." So Gemma Gaudette, she won't even remember
This is
this.
probably Channel 12.
Yeah, she was like
TV.
She was like a young reporter. She calls me and says, "Hey, can I do a thing?" I said, "Yeah, I work a shift tomorrow." She's like, "No, I'd like to come to your house." So she comes to my house and she's like, "Hey, I'm just
You
doing
have a
an
trampoline.
and we have a trampoline."
There you go.
Okay, so I have little kids.
No old TV reporters. That's great. Everything you got
so
an ER doc, trampoline, and kids. I can go to one place and get everything.
So she goes to the backyard. She interviews me, and while she interviews me, I say, "Yeah, they're dangerous. You got to be careful." I do like the usually talking points. Still mic'd up, Dawn. Still mic'd up, and I didn't know this. I didn't know these things about mics back then. Now I'm a little wiser, but she gets me. She gets me.
Now you're like super
She
professional.
gets my kids doing backflips on the trampoline and me telling them great job. But it's just a normal trampoline up above ground. So then the story comes out that night, and I'm excited to watch it. And it comes out, and they interview a little girl who broke her arm, and she's sitting there with the saddest little face, broken arm with her family. They tell this horrible, gut-wrenching story. They go to her backyard, and the trampoline's been disassembled, and it's in the corner. And then she goes to my interview, and it ends with me telling my kids,
Why
good
are
job.
you upset with her? That seems like that was your doing. You know what she wanted to
Right.
talk about.
This is like
I'm going to defend Gemma on that.
this is like inappropriate. Like
Your kids are fine.
my kids are fine.
Kids have kids now.
My kids did break their arms on that. But anyway, the funny thing is, the very end of the story, I can't remember who the anchor was that it goes back to after the story's done. He's like, "Well, I'm not sure what we should think about that story after watching both sides of that." And I like the head of the pediatric department, Jerry Hirschfeld, calls me.
Oh, I love Jerry Hirschfeld.
Remember Jerry?
He's my mom's boss.
Dude was a stud.
Yep.
I'm a new doc.
Very kind man.
He lights me up.
That's hard to believe.
He calls me and he's like, "What the hell are you doing? Do you know that the association?" Anyway, so then Shellman.
You know those old St. Luke's Cares for Kids shirts?
Oh yeah.
They said below, except Tommy.
So that was my, and then Nate, man, the first time I went on there when I was running, oh my gosh, I went in just, happy-go-lucky, how you doing, sit down, and he just, blasts me.
Have you ever heard him going after, what was the guy,
Oh.
Ed? Ed, the guy that ran for governor.
Humphreys?
Ed Humphreys. Have you ever heard the podcast of him lighting him on fire?
No. You saying I got off easy?
Yeah, there was screaming.
Really?
Yeah, over. We won't get into that here, but Nate can.
I actually really like Nate. And I really like Gemma, and I'm past it all. And it was my fault, both cases. The one case, governor. I shouldn't have had a trampoline. I shouldn't have had her. And the second, I shouldn't have run for governor. My fault.
I won't be running for anything.
What's next for Boise Dev and you?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is, so Kara has launched Boise Dev event, Boise Dev Presents. We are doing a really cool event. October 1st, during Boise Entrepreneur Week, we're launching what's called Peak 43. We're going to list the 43 fastest growing businesses in Idaho. And he's like, why 43? Do you know why 43?
43rd state.
Thank you. People get confused. We think that, anyway. So we're really excited about this. It'll be a gala event in the evening on Tuesday, October 1st. And companies submitted applications all through the spring, and we've tabulated that. We haven't announced who those are. And what's fun about it is it will be unveiled like a kind of an old radio countdown. It'll be unveiled that night. So you'll know that you are one of the 43, but you could be 43rd, you could be first. And Gretchen Parsons on our team will MC that along with Abe Jackson, who is the color commentator for Boise State Radio. And that's going to be really fun.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome.
Big event for us. Kara also launched a new newsletter called Boise Dev Eats. And this is restaurant news, local farmer profiles.
Are these links on your?
Yeah, if they actually on the right-hand side.
It's on your website. There it is, Peak 43.
43, yep. So you actually can't apply now. It's over. That link needs to come off. But yeah, we've got some great partners in that. And then, yeah, Boise Dev Eats, it's just really.
Where's the Eats, Maddie?
Scroll to the top. I think it's the first link in the orange navigation, Eats, all the way to the top.
Nope, there it is.
Yep.
Great.
And this is really fun, and it's a weekly newsletter. And thank you for giving me an ad click to Regents, our presenting sponsor. Shout out to Regents. It's you can just hit back. Actually, you're on the Regents website now. Yeah, so it's more than just restaurant news. It's a little bit of recipe. We've done some farmer features.
That's great.
In a new series we call Bountiful Idaho. And so, we're going to give you hard news, and we're going to cover homelessness in the Treasure Valley, and we're going to cover big developments, and we're going to do that. But we're also going to try and give you some things that are interesting that you want to know.
So again, sign up for that newsletter as well there.
Yep.
So you have your morning newsletter, morning newsletter, that newsletter, and then you can become an insider member.
Yep.
And then you get the early release news.
Yep.
Don, thanks for coming on.
Yep.
We really appreciate you and what you do.
What's your next development? That's my turn. You got another hour. We'll do a second podcast.
What's my next development?
Yeah. What's exciting you?
So
I know it's not the D&B expansion that we wrote about yesterday in Southeast Boise. I'm sure that's great. Taking over the Rite Aid, we wrote that yesterday. I saw Alquist Construction was doing that.
Yes,
I know you're doing a lot with D&B, but what are the big things?
We're doing a couple of big stores with D&B that I'll let them announce, which is really fun. But our partnership with Fred Bruning and Center Cal, formerly of Center Cal, has been amazing.
When are we going to get tenants at 10 Mile? What are you going to tell us?
Man, the second they sign.
You were going to
the second they sign. In fact, if you would have heard me in a meeting earlier today yelling, we need to get them to sign.
I can ask somebody else the question that I always get. Tommy, when are we getting an IKEA at 10 Mile?
I will tell you the funny story. Fred Bruning knows them so well. Fred used to have a biplane. You ever heard the story?
Of course, no. I did watch your podcast with him. It was really
So Fred had a biplane, and he was a pilot, and he would do trick stunts. And for years at ICSC in Las Vegas, Fred would take his plane, park it at the airport down there, and at ICSC, he would take clients to his plane and take them up and do acrobatics and cut deals with them in the air. And the owner and founder, the owner and founder of IKEA, he has had in his plane multiple times, and I don't think it's that far off. He asked me when we're doing this project together. He says, "You want an IKEA at 10 Mile?" And I said, "No, I think I want something else."
Okay, I'm excited to see. Yeah, I'm excited to see what that is. I think I might have figured it out, but I won't say that here.
You're always going to scoop everything. That's
We try.
Boise State needs just to understand that it's easier just to give you the information than fight. You find out.
I will say to Jeremiah Dickey's credit, they put out a thing about the North End Zone, and it was like, sign up here for more information. We'll email you more information about the North End Zone project. And I responded on Twitter and I said, I've been signing up for those emails for 3 years. I think he appreciated that.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. Thanks, Don. Appreciate you.
Yeah, appreciate
All
it.
right. Thanks for coming.